Yo, what is up, YouTube? It's your boy Tay Tizza, and I'm here with another video to talk about the game Godfall. Now, if you don't know what Godfall is a third-person looter slasher that's supposed to be a launch title for the PlayStation 5 and PC later this year. Now, Godfall is made by the studios Gearbox, Counterplay Games. Most of you already know who Gearbox is because most of you have played the Borderlands series, so you already know what's up with that. But the Counterplay Game Studio is kind of new. They pretty much have a slew of talent from a whole bunch of companies, from games that you probably know and love, from God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, Diablo 3, Halo, BioShock. The list goes on. They have a good group of talent within their company. Now, in the game of Godfall, you play as a Valorian knight who can equip these things called Valorants. Now, these Valorants come with different Valor plates that are pretty much different designs that come with their own host of history and lore that, of course, we'll learn as we play the game. You'll also use these Valorants to traverse across the world that is different areas. There you have an earth area, an air area, and a fire area, and of course a water area. So, it stays in line of what gods usually do, or whenever you're talking about a game that consists of magic and deities, so on and so forth. It's not out of the norm in terms of what you're going to be exploring and dealing with. Now, with you using these Valorants, you'll have access to 5 weapon classes. These weapon classes include a longsword, dual blades, polearm, two-handed warhammer, and a two-handed greatsword. Now, from what we've seen, every weapon class can actually use the shield. So the shield isn't necessarily counted as a different weapon class, but it has its own set of moves that kind of make it also an interesting addition no matter, which weapon set you're using. Now, these different weapon sets also are going to have special combos and bonuses that come with them. That's kind of a given. So what we've also been shown is that, like with the dual blade class, you're going to have this special like tornado attack combo that's, going to do more damage as you do more hits with it. And then, of course, it ramps up to a point where you can do a special move with the dual blades. So we are to assume that, of course, every weapon class is going to have something similar, right? It's kind of a given. Also, an interesting thing about it that they've shown is like with the longsword is that they'll have an attack timing system. Now, an attack timing system is pretty much you pressing square at the right time to get bonus additional effects on an attack you do, or, you may do extra damage. You may hit them with a different affliction, so on and so forth. It's just pretty much to kind of keep you from button mashing. It provides its own level of skill in a way, right? Now, we were only shown the longsword, but I'm pretty sure that the other weapon classes may have something similar. I know that they've shown something with the shield having a similar system where you'll throw the shield, and then if you press the shield again at the right time, he'll retrieve the shield and then throw it again, but do more damage. Things along those lines, right? And of course, with, like I said, that you'll be using the shield all the time, it's going to have like a blocking and parry system. That goes hand in hand with the fact that you'll be able to use the shield no matter what weapon classes you have. So that's the gist of everything we know in terms of Godfall. We don't even know why we're here. What they have told us is that there is a big bad boss that we are trying to work up towards, but they've been very vague in terms of the information involving the story of Godfall. It's kind of concerning because although we like good multiplayer games, we like good multiplayer games with a good story behind it. You need something to carry it, especially in a game like this. You need something to carry it when things kind of feel repetitive. And with any type of looter game, it's going to get repetitive. I don't care what nobody says. I don't care, what type of progression system they have. It's going to get monotonous at a certain point. So the only thing to carry people through monotony like that is a good story. And if you have a good story, then you will deal with the monotony because you want to see what ultimately happens at the end of it all. So as far as what they've shown, man, it's very concerning. It's very concerning because they've been very vague on the story. Um, the proposed loot system that they have with it is kind of iffy too. We've seen videos where there has been loot to drop, so to say, like you'll see it on the ground, but the person who's playing is not picking it up, or they're not showcasing the idea of what it means to collect the loot. Now, with Gearbox being behind this game too, there should be somewhat of a plethora of loot because that's how they do their Borderlands games, but they may not necessarily transfer that mindset or that gaming mechanism over to Godfall. It could just be something that, of course, they rely heavily on Borderlands, but for Godfall, they may tone it down and make the loot more meaningful in terms of, you know, you getting this loot means a big ass difference. Whereas in Borderlands, you getting some loot was like, this is be a marginal increase or it's going to be a big increase. Sometimes it's no increase at all. So I'm very worried about how the loot system is definitely going to play out, but I have high expectations from Gearbox to make it work. And then with also the different talent that they have at Counterplay, a lot of those devs over there have worked on games where the loot systems work. Like people who've worked on Diablo 3, like people who've worked on Horizon Zero Dawn. You know what I'm saying? Like those games have loot, they have special drops that make the collection aspect of looting meaningful and ultimately make sense for your progress, right? And speaking of progress, I want to talk about the class system. So, like I said, we know that there's Valor plates or different variations of the Valorants, but we don't know what besides them saying that this Valorant has a different story from this one. We don't know what makes them special, right? We don't know if there's like a tank one. We don't know if there's one that's heavily damaged. We don't know if one's going to be based off of some form of magic. Like from what they've shown is there's no difference in how they play at all. Like everyone they've shown probably has used a different weapon, which we know that the different weapons play differently, but we don't know that the Valorants themselves actually play differently amongst each one. So are we going to have one where this makes sense to take on this mission? Or does this Valorant make sense to take to air? Or this Valorant makes sense to take to fire? We don't know nothing about the class system that they're approaching with this game and with them having various classes or Valorants to play, which again is another name for classes in my mind. We don't know nothing about it. They've been very vague on some of the biggest topics when it comes to this RPG game. And that's just concerning. So with that being said too about knowing what's a tank and what's not, is there any form of progression skill wise? Is there a leveling system? Are we going to get a talent tree or some form of skill tree where as we level up, we can acquire more skills? Mind you, right? The PS5 is set to launch in 2 to 3 months, and we haven't gotten some of the most critical information to why we should buy this game or why we should be looking more forward to this game. Besides the visuals, the game looks amazing, but what about that game is going to have us wanting to play that game day in and day out? Whether there's some form of in-game system or not, like what's going to keep us going to the end of Godfall ultimately. Now they said there's not going to be any microtransactions. Everything's going to be in the game from day one, yada this, yada that. But we know how games these days work. So I personally feel like ultimately there may be some microtransactions to pop up at the last minute. Or they may heavily rely on DLC going forward with the game where they're going to continuously add content. Maybe the 4 realms that we know aren't going to be the only realms, and they may add some form of boss missions or, just little stuff that they can keep people to try to keep coming back to that game. Again, with the games that these people have worked on in the past, it's not far-fetched. We've seen in God of War how long the game can be itself, and then you have these little mini missions around the map that you can go and partake in, whether it was the Valkyries, whether it was the the saving the drowned crew members. Same thing for Horizon Zero Dawn. You had side missions. Same thing with, again, games like Diablo 3, where you have adventure mode, where you go on these different missions and you go to the different areas and everything changes whenever you load that game up. So it's worrisome with how they're going to do this class system, and if there's going to be some form of progression, and we haven't gotten any of that information at all. Nothing. We just know how the game is going to play in terms of, oh, you can do this combo. Oh, you can use these weapons. Oh, look at this shiny looking armor, right? And I'm looking forward to Godfall. Like I plan on purchasing Godfall day one, but to be this close to technically launch when we don't have some of the meat of the game already being revealed to us is very worrisome. And especially when you start thinking about longevity of the game, are they going to have any like in-game raids? Are there going to be, some type of dungeons or because you can co-op with up to 3 people, right? Is there going to be any form of content where it requires more than 3 people? What about Godfall is going to keep us playing past the ultimate goal of the game, which is to beat the game? Now, they haven't advertised it as a games as service type game and nothing like that. So I may be wrong in all my speculation or my expectations from the game, but I feel like when you have a game like this, these are things that should be expected from not only the genre, but the aesthetic and everything that they're going for with the game. These are kind of those expectations from people who play RPGs, people who know what it means to expand on universes that, inquires like gods and things of those sorts. Like, you expect there to be some form of longevity, some form of end game. It don't even got to be raids, but some form of content where I done collected all this gear, I done all this stuff, and now I can really test if it's really as good as it says. And then, I've spoke on the loot system, I've spoke on the class and skill system, but to loop back around to the loot system, we don't know how loot is going to be distributed. Like we don't know, is there different headgear? Is there different armor pieces? When we do get the weapons, does the weapons change? Well, actually, I take that back. There was one video I did see where they did have some different weapons, and I think that was just released most recently, right? And that was like the only video I've seen. But in all the gameplay trailers and everything, when these people are using these weapons, it's all the same weapon model. When they're using these Valor plates or Valorants, they're all the same Valorant. Is you got the lion looking one, the one looked like she's straight out of 300, and then you have kind of a bulky looking one. But again, they haven't shown really anything. I feel like to get more people hype about the game or interested in the game and really looking forward to the game as much as it should be with the game being so close to release. Because this is a launch title. Unless they're going to, I don't know, man, maybe I'm tripping. Maybe there's going to be a delay. Maybe it's not going to launch with the PS5. Maybe, this game is really going to come out in sometime Q1 2021. Maybe I'm crazy. Because again, like why would we be 2-3 months out and some of the biggest stuff, the meat and potatoes about an RPG hasn't even been given to us to dissect and learn more about or have, think pieces on about how it's going to work, or how can we synergize this with that? Is there going to be any forms of that? We don't know, man. We don't know. And not to mention, I feel like they can really improve on the combat system. It seems very, whenever you have like third person games like this, it's so easy to go astray, right? Especially when it's a ARPG. And for those who don't understand, there's a difference between an ARPG and RPG, right? With ARPGs, these are usually games where mash square to get a combo, right? Most RPGs is, you know, square is an attack, triangle is an attack, R1 and R2 is, another attack. And I'm using a controller as example. But like when I think of RPGs, I think of like Final Fantasies or WoW or Guild Wars or your Chrono Triggers. You have games where there's a multitude of what you can do rather than just mash square. So in today's time of ARPGs, we got games like Black Desert where square is one thing, but square triangle square is another thing, and then square triangle is another thing, and then square triangle square is a whole another thing. We don't even know if that system even has that. They've touched on how the combat works very little in terms of what they've given us in terms of the weapons we'll be using, and like knowing that there's combos and knowing that there's like a timing system. But how expansive is that before it becomes, again, monotonous and repetitive? Like, I feel like these are things that they really should be trying to hone in on us, give us information. So, again, we can be more interested in the game at the end of the day. I also feel like the field of view is too close for what they're going for with this action game. I feel like that shit should be like pushed back a little bit. Just like maybe 2-3 inches. You know what I'm saying? I feel like it's way too close in on the action for you to see probably what's going on behind you. I feel like there's definitely something that could change. And then overall, like, again, back around to the loot system, I feel like they need to show us more with how that's going to work. Because right now, it just feels like, I don't know, man. I don't even know what to say what it feels like, to be honest. Like, for me to be looking forward to the game that the way that I am, I guess because I'm a real big RPG dude. For me to be looking forward to the game is I have expectations for it that I feel like are going to ultimately fall flat on its face. I feel like I'm going to want more from it. Let me phone top off. I feel like I'm going to want more from it that it's not going to give me. I feel like ultimately right now the company is not, giving us what we need to hear about the game so that we can understand what we're doing in the game, what we're going to gain from it, and ultimately the end goal, right? I feel like there's a lot they need to really still put out about this game. The game looks good. I really feel like personally what they're trying to do is they're trying to sell the game on the visuals because the game looks phenomenal. And ultimately, what I may end up doing, man, I may end up getting it for both consoles, for the PC and the PS5. Because I'm gonna have a PS5 day one, but I may end up getting it for the PC and the PS5 because the game looks outstanding. And if I know anything about consoles the way that I do, man, let's be real, they may have some dips on console, but on this bad boy PC right here, that ain't gonna happen. So I may get it for both. I'm gonna get it for a console so I can play with, the homies over there. And they haven't even mentioned crossplay. They haven't even mentioned crossplay. They haven't even mentioned if PC people will be able to play with console people. They haven't mentioned if there's gonna be some form of player versus player combat. Do they need player versus player combat or crossplay? No. Does it make sense to have those things within that type of game? Very much so. And I feel like the expectations, again, that I have for it are very valid. And I feel like as a company, these expectations that I'm having, I'm pretty sure other RPG guys are having, especially when looking towards this game. With the state of play, they didn't give us much to go off of except reconfirming, things about the weapons. They didn't give us any more heavy information that's like, yo, this is the meat and potatoes right here. We know what's going on now. Or we know why we're fighting. We know, this is how the loot system gonna work. Like, we didn't get none of that. So, as hesitant as I am, I'm still looking forward to the game, though. Still looking forward to the game, and I still have high hopes for what it's going to do and what it's going to offer. So I'm just disappointed in what they've shown. I think that's really what I'm getting at. But I'm I'm still trying to have hope for it. All right. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, man. Are you looking forward to Godfall? Based on what they've shown you, do you feel like you're going to indulge in the game? Just let me know, man. And don't forget to like the video, man. I appreciate y'all coming through. I'll catch y'all another time. Peace.